What's shaking, everyone? So this morning, Bill Barr and the Department of Justice absolutely dropped the ether on New York City, Portland, Oregon, and Seattle, Washington, calling them one of my new favorite terms, anarchist jurisdictions. It just has such a beautiful ring to it and perfectly encapsulates what these three shitty cities have been doing under terrible leadership. And before we dive into this memorandum and taking a look at what these cities stand to lose, I just want to thank everybody for their recent support on all my videos. It's been tremendous, and I appreciate every single one of you tuning in. And if there's anything that you'd like for me to cover in the future, as well as if you have any information regarding this topic as well as anything else, feel free to drop it in that comment section down below. And while you're down there, if you don't mind hitting that subscribe button or dropping a like on the video, it does me a ton of good, and I'm just trying to grow this channel to be, one of the juggernauts, one of the big guys out there. So let's see what Mr. Barr dropped this morning. So the U.S. Department of Justice today identified the following three jurisdictions that have permitted violence and destruction of property to persist and have refused to undertake reasonable measures to counteract criminal activities: New York City, Portland, Oregon, and Seattle, Washington. The Department of Justice is continuing to work to identify jurisdictions that meet the criteria set out by the President's memorandum, and will periodically update the list of selected jurisdictions as required therewithin. That was the memorandum that dropped September 2nd, I do believe. Yeah, it says so right here. Yeah, it is the memorandum on reviewing funding to state and local government recipients that are permitting anarchy, violence, and destruction of American cities. Well, I can't think of three more easily identifiable examples than New York, Portland, and Seattle. But let's take a look what else they say. When state and local leaders impede their own law enforcement officers and agencies from doing their job, it endangers innocent citizens who deserve to be protected, including those who are trying to peacefully assemble and protest, said Attorney General William P. Barr, Esquire, who cannot allow federal tax dollars to be wasted when the safety of the citizenry hang in the balance. Absolutely. It is my hope that the cities identified by Department of Justice today will reverse course and become serious about performing the basic functions of government and start protecting their own citizens. And that's exactly what this is. This is a warning shot across the bow that New York, Portland, and Seattle need to get their shit together, otherwise Daddy's not paying out allowance anymore. So I think in the coming days and coming weeks, we're going to see a lot of backtracking by these assholes who are continuously driving out the rich citizens who can afford to leave, and realizing that those coffers are fucking running dry at an alarming rate. And they could get even drier, even quicker, if they don't shape the fuck up. So what's the criteria? What did they decide on as anarchist jurisdictions, or what meets that criteria? Whether a jurisdiction forbids the police from entering or from intervening to restore order amid widespread or sustained violence or destruction, withdrawn law enforcement protection from geographical areas or structures that law enforcement officers are lawfully entitled to access but have been officially prevented from accessing or permitted to access in exceptional circumstances, except when law enforcement officers are briefly withheld as a tactical decision intended to resolve safely and expeditiously a specific and ongoing unlawful incident posing an imminent threat to the safety of individuals or law enforcement officers. They disempower or defund the police departments. Ooh, boy, are there 109 other police precincts that are feeling the heat get turned up, feeling that collar get a little bit tighter than expected. By the way, that's several police departments around the entire country that have voted to either abolish, Minneapolis, fucking morons, defund or divert funds away from the police department for, I don't know, socialized programs, more commie rhetoric. Jurisdictions that unreasonably refuse to accept offers of law enforcement assistance from the federal government. Yeah, like when you have 100 days of uninterrupted violence in your streets, Ted Wheeler, dick. And, of course, whatever other factors Attorney General deems appropriate. which would normally be kind of a red flag that goes off in your head. Oh my god, there's one guy who can determine whether or not we get funding. Well, Bill Barr's proved to be a very clean-cut, by-the-book type of guy. And he's also quite a magnanimous individual. Because recently, I need to bring this up again because it's just so delicious. When he said that the COVID lockdowns are the biggest... I want to get the phrasing right because I don't want to be MSM here. That the COVID lockdowns are the biggest injustice to be placed upon the United States citizenry since slavery is just such a beautiful shit kicking to anybody who is a COVIDitarian. Any Karens out there that, constantly nag about masks. That is a kick in the nuts by the top law enforcement officer. So, yeah. I love the man. He's terrific. Man, you know what? Looking at Bill Barr and ACB here today, never have I been more attracted to two people I would never want to fuck in my life. But let's dive into why New York City meets the criteria of being an anarchist jurisdiction. Shootings in New York City have been on the rise since looting and protests began in or about May 28th. From July 2020, shootings have increased from 88 to 244, an increase of 177% since last July. In August 2020, shootings increased from 91 to 242, a 166% increase from the same time last year. Wow, I thought gun control was supposed to work. Fuck do I know. Well, the city faced increased unrest, gun violence, and property damage. The New York City Council cut $1 billion from New York Police Department's fiscal year of 21 budget. The budget resulted in the cancellation of the new police recruiting class, cuts to overtime spending, and the transfer of certain police functions, including school safety, out of New York Police Department. But it also makes sure that there are 27 police officers guarding the Black Lives Matter mural that's painted in front of Trump Tower. That is something retarded that Bill de Blasio has ordered. Fucking awful human being. Ideological Sandinista apologizing socialist dick. Don't forget that. Meanwhile, the Manhattan and Brooklyn district attorneys have declined to prosecute charges of disorderly conduct and unlawful assembly arising from the protests, and the district attorneys in Queens and the Bronx have declined to prosecute other protest-related charges. Fucking stupid. Just like Mike Schmidt out in Portland. But we'll get to him in a minute. Both Mayor Bill de Blasio and Governor Andrew Cuomo, yuck and yuck, have forcefully rejected federal law enforcement support. And the people of New York City have been so great today because they painted a giant fuck de Blasio and Cuomo mural on the streets in New York City. It is great to see that the people that are still left in New York City have a little bit of fight left in them. Meanwhile, in Portland, this month, Portland marked 100 consecutive nights of protest, marred by vandalism, chaos, and even killing. The execution of Aaron J. Danielson, a Trump supporter walking to his home, not accosting anyone, was killed by a psychopath, but at least he got his comeuppance a couple days later. Need not retread that ground. Those bent on violence regularly started fires, yes, threw projectiles at law enforcement officers and destroyed property. Numerous law enforcement officers, among others, suffered injury. At least 84, I believe, in Portland. I could be wrong on that one. Feel free to fact check me. It's at least 84. It could be a lot higher. Shootings increased by more than 140% in a gun control state. Weird. In June and July 2020 compared to the same period last year. In the midst of the violence, the Portland City Council cut $15 million from their police bureau, eliminating 84 positions. Crucially, the cuts included the Gun Violence Reduction Team. I outlined the dissolution of this very, very useful task force in my part 3 of the Ted Wheeler, excoriating pieces that I did on him earlier in the month. Yeah. There's a lot of shit in his 19-point plan that are fucking bonkers, and that one really got my goat. In August, Mayor Ted Wheeler sent the cuntiest letter imaginable to President Trump and his administration, telling him, "We don't need your division, hate, or help." Meanwhile, your home is getting set on fire, and a bunch of other residents that live in your condo building have to deal with night after night of riots because you are a rubber-spined bitch. But let's go back to before I had a YouTube channel. Let's take a look at Seattle, Washington. Y'all remember Chaz Chop, whatever the fuck you want to call it, that communistic paradise where rapes, sexual assaults, murders, shooting, and violence ran amok for the better part of a month because Jenny Durkin and Jay Inslee were too busy virtue signaling to the ever-eroding leftist population out there. And, yeah, it led to the death of 2 people and the shooting of 2 others, as well as unquantifiable amounts of sexual assault and assaults, violence, and property destruction, which total in the hundreds of millions, I do believe, at this point. And yeah, man, for being a summer of love, as deemed by Mayor Durkin, if you guys do recall at the time, as soon as these retards set up their fucking autonomous zone, they immediately put up cement barricades and fences. So they wanted border patrol and border control. Yeah, and for as much as they hate the police and were wanting to defund the police, they sure acted quickly in setting up a armed police force to patrol the perimeter, as well as to try and keep the peace, unsuccessfully, might I add you, within the walls of Chaz Chop. But yeah, according to Mayor Durkin and Jay Inslee, they didn't need any federal guard to come in. Fucking dolts. But that's the gist of the press briefing. That's what they found, and to be completely honest, I do expect these cities to quickly resolve these problems, because I have a Ballotpedia article from 2014. Here is all the federal funding that each state got. I couldn't find it parsed down to exact cities, but this will do, because federal funding is allocated to the more densely populated cities, and we'll just immediately hop into New York City. They received $48 billion, which accounted for a third of their operating budget in 2014. Now, most of that funding is going to be going to New York City because it has the largest population base, and that's how this shit rolls. And same with Oregon, Portland, largest city, $8 billion, nearly $9 billion in 2014. This is the most recent statistics I could find, and once again, it accounts for a third of their operating budget. Same thing you'll find, just for sheer completion's sake, $11 billion, 30% of their budget. Now, that is a significant chunk. If you are to lose that much money, say if anybody lost 30% of their paycheck every month, and there was an opportunity to regain that, or not even lose that 30%, you'd fucking shape up in a hurry. And that's what I expect these states and cities to do. Their bosses, all the governors, Cuomo, Inslee, and Kate Brown in Oregon, are immediately going to tell Ted Wheeler, Mayor Jenny Durkin, and Bill de Blasio to get your fucking shit in order, because we ain't losing no federal assistance. Yeah. I love it when, the guys in charge aren't going to back stupid socialist ideas. They aren't going to bail out failed propositions. They're going to act on it. I love that. You'd love to see it. But I wanted to do a quick update on this. I think it's a great start, and we'll be seeing. Maybe these cities, maybe these states are too far left. Maybe they're too far gone. But I hold out hope, because I know that there are some good people in Washington, Oregon, and New York that hold liberty and freedom as highest order, and not socialism and breadlines. Anyways, guys, I'll leave her there. Thanks again for taking the time to watch this video, dropping a like or hitting that subscribe button. Once again, does me a ton of good, And it keeps you informed because I'm out here every fucking day dropping lots of content for y'all, doing a lot of research, so you don't have to subject yourself to this shit. Anyways, guys, I've been Don Consuelo, and I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.